What would you do if, on your wedding anniversary, the man you loved betrayed you in a language he thought you did not understand? 6 years later, fate brings a twist no one could have imagined. Stay with me, because this story will leave you questioning love, loyalty, and the power of time. Before we dive into this incredible story, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. On wedding anniversary, husband flirted with his secretary in German, so I left. 6 years later, he was. The restaurant smelled of roses and candle. It was our wedding anniversary. I had spent the entire day planning the evening, carefully choosing my dress. The one he once said made me look like a dream. The waiter placed wine glasses before us, and I watched him raise his glass with a half smile. Then, as the music drifted around us, he leaned close to his secretary, seated far too comfortably at our table, and in fluent German, words rolled off his tongue, words he thought I would not understand, but I did. Every phrase was sharp as a blade, compliments meant for her, promises whispered. As though I was invisible, the clinking of cutlery grew louder in my ears, drowning the violin music. My heart pounded as if trying to leap from my chest. I stared at the man I once trusted with my soul, realizing in that instant that my place in his life had been replaced. The world around me blurred, but their laughter remained sharp, piercing. I stood up, my chair scraping against the polished floor, and the entire restaurant turned to look at me. He froze, his smile fading when he saw the tears in my eyes, but I said nothing, not a single word. I walked away, leaving behind the roses, the wine, and 6 years of a marriage that had become a lie. The night air outside was cold and crisp, carrying with it the scent of rain. Each step I took away from the restaurant felt heavy, yet freeing. I had no plan, no future mapped out, only the certainty that I could no longer remain with a man who betrayed my love. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Life was not easy, but my heart began to mend. I poured my energy into work, into friendships, into rediscovering the woman I had forgotten while standing in his shadow. 6 years passed, then one morning, as I walked through the quiet streets of the city, I saw him again. He was sitting alone on a park bench, his once sharp suit replaced by a worn-out coat. The man who once filled rooms with confidence now sat hunched, staring at the ground as if searching for something he lost long ago. His hair, once dark and strong, carried streaks of gray. His eyes, once filled with charm, now seemed tired, hollow, and empty. I stopped in my tracks, unable to move forward. For a moment, time folded back, and I saw the man I once loved. Memories came rushing like a storm, our first dance, the laughter we shared, the promises we whispered under the stars, but they collided with the memory of that night. His voice in German, his betrayal, the weight of my silent walk away. He lifted his head slowly, our eyes met, recognition flickered in his gaze, followed by something softer, something broken. He tried to stand, but his body trembled. I saw shame carved into his face, deeper than the lines age had drawn. For a moment, the world seemed painfully quiet. The trees stood still, the wind held its breath, and I, frozen in the middle of the path, wondered if this meeting was fate, or just a cruel reminder of the past. My heart pounded again, but this time with questions, not pain. Why here? Why now, after 6 years? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His lips trembled as if the weight of unspoken years pressed heavily against them. Finally, he whispered my name. A sound so faint, so fragile, that it nearly broke something inside me. It was not the confident voice I remembered. It was a voice coated with regret, cracked by time, and softened by longing. I stood still, my hands clutching my bag tightly, as if holding on to my own strength. Part of me wanted to turn and walk away, to protect the heart I had rebuilt, but another part, the part that still remembered the man before the betrayal, urged me to stay. His eyes pleaded with me. They were no longer the eyes of a careless husband, they were the eyes of a man who had fallen, who had tasted the bitterness of loneliness, and who carried the scars of choices he could never undo. The silence between us grew heavy. So heavy that even the rustling of the leaves sounded like echoes of forgotten promises. He lowered his gaze, ashamed, as if afraid to meet my eyes again. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "I have been waiting for this day. Even if you never forgave me." My breath caught in my chest. 1,000 questions raced through my mind. What happened to him? Where was the secretary? Why did fate place us here, face to face, after 6 long years? His shoulders slumped, as if even standing before me required every bit of strength he had left. He did not reach out. He did not dare. Instead, his voice trembled again. The day you walked away, everything changed. The air felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. I stared at him, trying to piece together the fragments of a man who once broke me, yet somehow looked broken himself now. The cafe around us faded into the background. The sound of clinking cups, of muted laughter, blurred into silence. All that existed was the man in front of me, and the weight of words yet to be spoken. He drew in a deep breath, his hands shaking slightly as they rested on the table. I thought I was strong. I thought I had everything. But the truth is, I lost it all. His words pierced through the air like shards of glass. I tightened my grip on my bag, torn between the ache of old wounds and the stir of compassion that I did not want to admit. My heart pounded louder, each beat echoing with questions I had carried for years. What did he mean? What had he lost, and why? After all this time, did part of me still care to know? He lowered his gaze, as if ashamed to meet my eyes. The business failed, he whispered. My friends left. Even the people I thought were loyal vanished the moment the money was gone. His fingers traced the rim of his coffee cup, over and over, as though the repetition kept him from collapsing. I was alone, he said softly. Utterly, painfully alone. The words settled heavy in my chest. I remembered my own nights of loneliness, when silence had been my only companion, but this was different. He had chosen this path. He had betrayed love, and life had stripped him bare. I searched his face for the man I once loved, but all I saw was someone weathered by regret. Still, there was a flicker in his eyes. A flicker of longing. A flicker of hope. He leaned closer, his voice trembling. I never stopped thinking about you. Not for a single day. The cafe seemed to vanish again. Time stood still. His words clung to me, tugging at the pieces of a heart I had spent years stitching back together, and I found myself asking, was this sorrow I saw in him real? Or just another chapter of his charm, rewritten with regret? I looked at him for a long time. There was sorrow in his eyes, but also the weight of choices that could not be undone. In that moment, I realized something important. Forgiveness does not always mean returning. Sometimes, forgiveness means letting go of the pain, of the anger, of the chains that hold us to the past. I placed my hand gently over his. I hope you find peace, I whispered. And I hope you learn that love is not a game. It is trust, and once that trust is broken, it cannot always be rebuilt. He lowered his head, tears glistening in his eyes. And I rose from the table with calm strength, walking away not in bitterness, but in freedom. Outside, the air felt lighter. The years of hurt no longer pressed down on my chest. I had chosen myself. I had chosen life, and in that choice, I discovered a truth worth sharing. We all face betrayal. We all face moments when love is tested, when hearts are broken. But those moments do not define us. What defines us is how we rise from them, wiser, stronger, and more compassionate. The moral of my story is simple. Do not let someone's mistake destroy the beauty of your soul. Value yourself enough to walk away when respect is gone. And always remember, love begins with self-respect, and from there, all healing becomes possible. Moral lesson: true love is built on trust and respect. If those foundations crumble, the greatest act of courage is choosing to love yourself enough to move forward. ****. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt tale. If it touched you, share it, leave a comment below, and remind someone, you are never alone.